Welcome, Popcorn Junkies. Welcome to the weekly Rushes. This is going to be a weekly news roundup of what's happening in the film world and on streaming. And each week we're going to give you a rushed rush through the weekly Rushes. Some of this stuff will have already landed on the Popcorn Junkies Instagram account. Head over there. You can see some pictures and some news. But we thought it might be quite nice to have, I don't know, a sort of film on YouTube that kind of appeals to those film fans that are a huge cornerstone of our channel. So let's crack on with the weekly Rushes, guys. Why not? One of the first stories that we mentioned on the Instagram account is Joaquin Phoenix teasing the idea that he might be in a sequel to The Joker. He said in an interview that he's an interesting guy, Arthur Fleck, and some. He also says there are some things we could do with this guy and could explore further, but as to whether we actually will, I don't know. Now, I don't think he's consciously teasing there. What do you think? I don't think he's necessarily saying, it could be happening. But the part of the story that I think is intriguing is that the Hollywood Reporter did a piece on Hollywood lawyers, and they discovered that Todd Phillips, the director of Joker, his lawyers have signed an agreement, or they've got a deal that was struck, for Todd Phillips to co-write the second film, or the sequel. So that, for me, is more convincing than necessarily, Joaquin Phoenix talking about it or referencing it. I'm sure he'll be up for it. And I'm sure a lot of people have said, no, it could ruin the first one. What do you think, guys? I personally think it could be like The Godfather, where the second is almost as good, if not better, potentially, than the first. Next up is a streaming story. Is anyone here, are you a Claire Foy fan? I'm a Claire Foy fan. I particularly liked her in, was it Unsane, the Steven Soderbergh film shot on an iPhone 10? Unsane? Was it Unsane? Insane? Something like that. Claire Foy, anyway, she's just signed up to a new limited series drama where she's playing Sheryl Sandberg, who's the chief operating officer of Facebook. And a book was written about her called An Ugly Truth Inside Facebook's Battle for Domination. It's produced actually by the same producers that brought us Mayor of Easttown. Now, Claire Foy is such a nuanced, cracking young actress. She was brilliant in The Crown, obviously you'll know her from that. But I'm intrigued because, of course, there was that movie, wasn't there, The Social Network, in which Jesse Eisenberg played Mark Zuckerberg. So I think this has the makings of being, and with Facebook currently, being sort of dragged across the coals when it comes to what their real motivation is and whether they look after their customers. I think this could be a really compelling series. Now, this is a funny story. I like this story. What do you think of Cats, guys? Are there any fans here of Cats? Because I don't want to embarrass you. I don't want to humiliate you. I don't want to make you feel a bit shy. But we didn't go and see it. So really, we shouldn't be able to judge it. And we shouldn't really judge it at all. But the trailers look ghastly. Judi Dench and Idris Elba as Cats just look strange. And even the creator of the play or the musical, Andrew Lloyd Webber, he also thought so. He hated it so much, he went and bought a Havanese puppy. He described the film as, I quote, off the scale all wrong, and went on to say there wasn't really any understanding of why the music ticked at all. I saw it and I just thought, oh God, no. It was the first time in my 70 odd years on this planet that I went out and bought a dog. So the one good thing to come out of it is his little Havanese puppy. As I say, we haven't seen it, but if there are any of you out there who think it was an absolute sort of, triumph, please share with us what the majority of people are missing and why it was such a commercial flop. This is a great story. Venom 2, which is soon going to hit screens in the UK. It's already out in America and it's doing incredibly well. And in fact, I'm going to tell you just how well it's doing in a minute. But this is a great story. Apparently, a gruesome scene was dropped from the forthcoming Tom Hardy film. He's a sort of symbiote. It's within the sort of superhero, Marvel superhero, but it's adjoined to that Sony side of things. And it stars Tom Hardy, Woody Harrelson. But Sheena Dougal, who's the visual effects supervisor for the new film, told Variety about a sequence in which Harrelson's villain, Carnage, is seen putting his tongue down his victim's throat in order to kill them, essentially killing them with a French kiss. Have you ever been killed by a French kiss? The VFX supervisor said, we had to tone that back a bit. He does it with a tentacle in the comics, but I thought it would be fun to have him use his tongue to add that extra gruesome element. Oh, God almighty. Venom 2 has grossed $90 million in its first weekend. It's already gone past $100 million, and it's the first sequel since COVID happened that's outstripped the box office at this stage than the original film. So it's doing better than Venom, and it's doing better within this sort of post-COVID scenario. This is a flashback back to Charlie's Angels. Drew Barrymore came out praising Lucy Liu because she complained or has discussed or mentioned that Bill Murray, wonderful Bill Murray from Ghostbusters, was disrespectful and treated her unacceptably and inexcusably on the set of Charlie's Angels. Drew Barrymore said, "In workplace, it's important to respect each other," whereas Lucy Liu revealed earlier this year that Murray threw a bit of a strop, and the rumour mill has it that he was like this because he described her as nothing other than a television actress. So yeah, a bit of beef there. I don't know whether it was resurrecting something a bit old. It's a bit hearsay-ish. Was it on set? Did it happen on set? Was Bill Murray? Perhaps, in part. I don't know. Am I just wanting to defend Bill Murray because I love Bill Murray? Perhaps. I don't know. But apparently they met, they bumped into each other on Saturday Night Live, ran into each other, and all was fine. Storm in a teacup, perhaps. George Clooney. Right, George Clooney. He's directing a movie called The Tender Bar, which stars Ty Sheridan as a fatherless young adult who bonds with his bartender uncle, Ben Affleck. Good old Ben Affleck, and the patrons at his bar. But IndieWire, the online sort of magazine, film magazine, asked him why he didn't return as the Caped Crusader. I don't know if you remember, he was Batman a while ago. And Clooney simply said, well, he was due or could have returned for the series The Flash. And he said, "They didn't ask me. When you destroy a franchise the way I did you feel he destroyed a franchise?" I think Batman and Robin was considered one of the worst films, wasn't it? Clooney said, "They didn't ask me. When you destroy a franchise the way I did, usually they look the other way when The Flash comes by." But this is a great touch. Clooney, obviously famously married to Amal Clooney, who's a human rights lawyer. She revealed to Variety magazine that George Clooney won't let her watch the film, Batman and Robin. And Clooney confirms this and says, there are certain films I just go, I want my wife to have some respect for me. I think that's great that even at that level, he knows he's done a shit film and he wants to protect his reputation from his wife. I think that's wonderful. Spider-Man's Jake Gyllenhaal. Oh, we love Jake Gyllenhaal in this household. He's been announced as a new superhero in a new movie, not part of the Marvel universe, not part of the DC universe, but Gyllenhaal is stepping into superhero land, and after his nerve-wracking turn in Spider-Man Far From Home, in which he discusses the fact that he forgot lines, he was stressed, he played Mysterio in that movie, he said, "It's hard, man, the acting is hard, that world is enormous, and I joined that world way into the run. It's a train that's already moving. Normally I come in way early on in a project and I get to figure it out." And so he freaked out an awful lot on that movie because he just wanted to get it right, and it's so precise. These superhero films are so precise. But anyway, he's been cast in a new film from one of the creators of Deadpool, a chap called Rob Liefeld, and this film's called Prophet. And Gyllenhaal plays John Prophet, who's conscripted by the Germans at the tail end of World War II and powered up with superhuman strength by scientists. He's basically been turned into a sort of superhuman individual. Reminds me a little bit of that J.J. Abrams film. What was it? Blood something or other? Where they sort of uncovered the Nazis were sort of messing about with humans and injecting stuff into them so they become superhumans. Now, if you follow the Popcorn Junkies Instagram account, you'll have seen this story. Elijah Wood talking on a podcast about the fact that around the time that Lord of the Rings was being touted about to be made, Miramax, Harvey Weinstein's company, owned the rights. And Peter Jackson wanted to make them, but he wanted to make all three. Miramax didn't want to make all three, but Harvey Weinstein, being essentially the arse that he is, said to Peter Jackson, the director, take them somewhere else, and if you get them essentially commissioned and green lit from another studio in a weekend, in 2 days, and they agree to make all three, you can have the rights, they can take the rights, which in a sense in the movie industry is an impossible task. Peter Jackson did it, he pulled it off. And as payback, Elijah Wood talks in this podcast about the fact that when designing the faces and masks of the orcs, the horrendous orcs, with these misshapen heads, apparently they based one of them on the look of Harvey Weinstein as a "fuck you, mate." I think that's quite funny. I don't know about you. You may have also seen on the Popcorn Junkies Instagram account Tilda Swinton, George Mackay. George Mackay famously sort of shot to fame in 1917. He was also in the True History of the Kelly Gang. He's a cracking young actor. Tilda Swinton, the incredibly odd art house, used to star in Derek Jarman films. Is always popping up occasionally and looking sort of, I don't know, she's like being carved from some kind of marble. I don't know, she's just strange. But Stephen Graham too are set to sing in a new musical. But the weird thing about this musical is it's not a musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber, it's not like Mamma Mia, it's not The Greatest Showman. This comes from the director behind The Act of Killing, which was a curious film set in Indonesia where people who'd killed a lot of people, I never saw it in a sort of political or cultural kind of, I think it was a kind of ethnic cleansing situation. He got the perpetrators, the killers, to dramatise scenes from when they killed. Anyway, he's interested in mashing up genres and doing all that kind of stuff. But he's making a musical, get this, about the impending apocalypse, aptly titled The End. And it features Tilda Swinton, George Mackay and Stephen Graham. This is what the director said: "I've been interested in the apocalypse for a long time. It's my kind of guy. I had a longing to make a film on wealth forged in mass violence." Could be America. "I was researching other very wealthy families, and one of them was buying a doomsday bunker. I've always wanted to make a film about the end of days people and doomsday bunkers. Don't you? I want a nuclear bunker. I decided to make a film about a family in a bunker 20 years after the world has ended, and to make it a musical." That's the bit that I don't understand. Yes, all the rest, but a musical. Stephen Graham singing in a musical about a family in a bunker. Were you a fan of WandaVision? I was a fan of Agatha Harkness, played by Kathryn Hahn in the Disney Plus series starring Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. I thought it was a cracking series. I think it was the highest point really in Disney Plus's Marvel output. I've liked some of the other stuff, obviously Loki and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but I thought WandaVision was great. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. And Kathryn Hahn was a great character. She actually played the nosy neighbour in it, but underneath the nosy neighbour of Agnes, she was actually Agatha Harkness, who's like this sort of top witch. Anyway, she's got her own series. She's got her own spin-off series, and it's being written and produced by WandaVision's head writer Jack Schaefer. But I didn't know this, I didn't realise this. There's a song in WandaVision called Agatha All Along, and it reached #1 on iTunes and number 36 in the Billboard chart. I don't remember the song. There must have been a song, I don't remember it. Now, Dune is coming out. Dune, Star Wars for grown-ups, Lord of the Rings for grown-ups, is coming out in about 2 weeks, is it? 3 weeks? Or is it coming out in December? No, I'm getting it confused. Denis Villeneuve, the director of Dune and also the director of Blade Runner 2049, has said this, get this, as Daniel Craig exits James Bond with No Time to Die. Go and check out our review. Denis Villeneuve wants to make, he says, "I would deeply love to make a 007 movie." Now, the thing about Denis Villeneuve is he makes incredibly contemplative, or has done, the last 3 films now, will have been sci-fi. Really contemplative, epic sci-fi. But maybe that could be a great collision with James Bond. You know, they have to start a new chapter. Could they take it to a new place? Could it be future? It doesn't have to be futuristic. Anyway, he says, "I would deeply love one day to make a James Bond movie. It's a character that I've been with since my childhood. Haven't we all, Denny? I have massive affection for Bond. It would be a big challenge to try and reboot it after what Daniel did." What do you think, guys? Do you think Denis Villeneuve is the guy to steer James Bond into a new place? And finally, is that Star Trek? Is that Star Trek? I don't know if that is Star Trek. Jeff Bezos, obviously, taking tourists into space, spending billions on getting into space just to fly in it for 30 seconds. Billions. He's taking William Shatner, Captain Kirk, or as I used to say as a kid, Captain Kirk. They're taking him into space. And Captain Kirk is 90 years old. And a friend of William Shatner, the actor obviously, said to him, wouldn't it be something if Captain Kirk went up to space in one of Jeff Bezos's planes, I guess, or shuttles or rockets or whatever? And William Shatner said, oh, for God's sake, man, nobody cares if Captain Kirk goes to space. It was 55 years ago, man, but I'm doing well. Maybe I should go up to space. Now, if you know William Shatner, for the last 30 years, not an awful lot he said has made really any sense whatsoever. Interesting fact, the mask of Michael Myers in Halloween is based on a mask from the 70s that you could buy of William Shatner. So William Shatner's kind of in the Halloween franchise. So it was announced last week that William Shatner will be heading past or exploring the final frontier for real in Bezos's Blue Origin spaceflight. So there you go, guys. Those are the weekly rushes. That's what's happening. That's what's been happening in the world of film, the world of streaming, you name it, the box office, everything.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.